What's up, gamers, and welcome to Player 1, the first installment of my video game content of the channel. So this is where all my video game related stuff will be posted through. I just want to give a quick foreword before I start this video, which is going to be a review, but the video game section on my channel, these are just going to be mostly reviews and like top 5 lists and things like that. I'm not ever gonna do any kind of like let's play stuff or any actual gameplay stuff. I'm not that kind of gamer, and I don't think you'd want to see me play games and all that. So all that stuff, I'm not gonna show myself playing video games. Yeah. So these are just gonna be top 5 lists and reviews for the most part right now. If I think of anything else, I'll throw it in there. But yeah, so this is kicking off the video game portion of my channel. Player 1. First up is a review. So yeah, here we go. Hope you enjoy.
Hearken well in Hall of Kings. On ocean steed my words gain wings. Odin's mead I forth will bring. For noble deeds thine honor sing. The brave man slain Valkyrier waits. Reward for strain to Valhalla takes. Then horns resound the mighty hall. For those who fight, for those who fall. For those who fight, for those who fall.
So yeah, here we go. Kicking off the first review on my channel with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the latest installment in the video game franchise. And my second favorite franchise, which Assassin's Creed is. Number 1 is right here on my shirt. And so yeah, before we get into the review, I'm going to kind of let you all know how these reviews are going to work and how I'm going to set them up. So I kind of decided to make this video game section of my channel based mostly on a video game group I'm in on a social media page. Shout out to Video Game Focus, all of you in there. So the admin of the page is actually a good friend of the channel, Marcus, who I've done my football picks videos with. He's the admin of the page, and he kind of set up how to do the reviews. So how the reviews are going to be done are going to be based through gameplay. So I'm going to talk about gameplay, the story, the visuals and sound, any negatives, and then X factors in the game. And each of these sections will be based on the point total out of 20 points. And then add it all up, overall review be out of 100. So yeah, before I jump in, talk about the gameplay, just real quick. So as I mentioned, Assassin's Creed, it has become one of my favorite video game franchises. I absolutely love it. I'm a big history person, so the fact that the game goes into historical eras, it's kind of like a historical fiction, you know, kind of like reading historical fiction, except I'm actually playing a video game of historical fiction. So it's a lot of fun for me to go into these eras and just play through them and all that. It's fun to discover and explore and play through the story in these different historical eras. Now, ever since Assassin's Creed Origins, when the franchise went to one of, if not my favorite historical period, which is ancient Egypt, they just revamped the franchise, really gave it a breath of fresh air, fresh life, and really started to turn into kind of an RPG game. I enjoyed Origins. I know many people who are like hardcore fans of the franchise kind of fell out of touch with it from there because they didn't like what they were doing. But I loved it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Origins. It was my favorite Assassin's Creed game. Spoiler alert. And then Odyssey came out. Of course, I pre-ordered it. Was hyped up for it. It looked amazing. Ancient Greece. What's not to love? And I was disappointed. I did not play through Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I decided to just stay up to date with the story by watching YouTube videos, getting through the story, all that. So if there's anything in here that when I just quick recap the story up to date that I miss, I apologize. Like I said, I caught up with the story through YouTube. I couldn't get into Odyssey that much. I think I played maybe 25 hours of it, and by that time I was just kind of burned out. I didn't like the progression system. They really kind of took stealth out of it, which I get where you're kind of going towards RPG, but Assassin's Creed game, stealth has still got to be a core element of the game, and it just wasn't. It was too much of a grind, really. Like, I don't have time to put in 5 hours a day just to like level up 2 or 3 levels. I have a life. I'm busy. I play video games for fun. I try to get in like an hour a day. It's kind of like my relax and unwind time. So it was too much for me. Odyssey, I just couldn't get into it. So Valhalla, though, when Valhalla was announced, I was excited about it, and I had read, they were kind of changing some things up from Odyssey, and so I was willing to give it a chance, and I've given it a chance, and yeah, we'll dive in now to the review to see what I thought about it. So we'll start with gameplay. So gameplay, as we mentioned, they kind of changed everything starting with Origins, and they've kind of been refining it, I feel. So in Valhalla, they have kind of refined the mechanics for combat and everything from what they started in Origins, and I think it was good in this one. Origins, it was a bit choppy and whatnot. Odyssey, it was kind of the same, and I feel like for Valhalla, they spent some good time and they really honed in on it, and I think they fixed what they needed to fix. There may still be some things needed to fix for future games, but I think they did a good job with the combat system and the mechanics in this, refining it. For the most part, combat is pretty, I'd say, immersive, especially if you're playing on PlayStation 5 with the new DualSense controller. Just the haptics and the feedback on that controller is amazing, and it really, when you're pulling back on a bow in the game, you feel that tension when you're pulling down on the bumper. It's on the trigger. You feel that tension, so that's immersive and smooth, really, I'd say. And then for the big thing why I didn't like Odyssey, what made a comeback for Valhalla was the stealth. Stealth has made a comeback in this game for Valhalla, and they really, I know it's kind of weird to think, well, you're playing as Vikings, you're playing the era of Vikings, there's not really anything stealth about pillaging and burning villages and all that. There's a lot more than just doing that, and there's a lot that goes into it. I'm not going to divulge too much of the story, and we'll get to the story in a little bit, but I'm not going to be too much spoilers and whatnot. But they did bring stealth back, and they did a good job of bringing stealth into it. It really is more of an optional thing. So if you want to be stealthy about it and be more old school Assassin's Creed, you can do that. Or if you want to go the Viking route and just go full steam ahead and just go right at it, you can do that as well. Or you can even mix it up. You can take out a few people, different outposts, and through the stealth way, and then take out the rest through going right at it. It's up to you, really. That's what I really loved about this game, is that you could play it how you want to play it. To me, that really does good for a game, when you're not forced one way or the other, but you can kind of mix it up and do it your own way. So yeah, for the gameplay, I think that was great. And overall, I'd give gameplay for Assassin's Creed Valhalla a 19 out of 20. Alright, now for the story. So a game like this, I'm not going to divulge too much. I know even if you're not much of an Assassin's Creed person, I don't like giving too many spoilers or too much away of a story. Like, if you want to know the story, then you got to play it yourself. I'll give away like the basics and whatnot, but I'm not going to give away too much. So yeah, the story, it picks up after Odyssey. As I said, I only kept up through the Odyssey story through YouTube videos, so if I missed anything, a quick recap up to date in the story, I'm sorry. I got my information from YouTube instead of playing through. I just couldn't play through Odyssey. The story, it picks up for the modern day segment. It picks up with Layla Hassan and obviously working with William Miles and that crew. What you learn in this one is that there seems to be another apocalypse coming in. So remember, at the end of, those of you Assassin's Creed fans remember the end of Assassin's Creed 3, Desmond, they were trying to stop the events of 2012 at that time from the world ending. Desmond Miles ended up sacrificing himself, and it helped save the world, but only for a short period of time, because something else seems to be happening with the Earth's like gravitational pull, or the magnetic field, something like that, that's causing another impending apocalypse to come. So now Layla Hassan and her team, now they have to figure out why this is happening and what they can do to stop it. So that's where we pick up. Then they obviously go into the Animus. They go through our main character Eivor, who was a legendary Viking in the game. And so Eivor, with this, what I like with this, you could choose, they kind of carried on with Odyssey, you could choose to either play as a female Eivor or a male Eivor, or new thing they did is you could leave it up to the Animus to choose whichever was the stronger of the DNA binding at that time in the story. So you could end up playing through the story, one part as male Eivor, another part as female Eivor. For the most part, I decided to play as male Eivor. I personally like the voice acting and everything from the male Eivor better, but I did switch it up here and there, and it doesn't do too much for the story, but it kind of has some scenes, like kind of some of the romance scenes, kind of goes either way, whichever you want to choose there. But yeah, so Eivor and his or her brother Sigurd, they grow up together after Eivor's parents are killed. You kind of see that in the opening scene. They grow up together, so basically they're brother and brother, or brother and sister. and once they get of age, they kind of rebel against their father in Norway and decide to head out on their own to kind of build their own legacy. Specifically, Sigurd does that. Eivor's kind of Sigurd's right-hand man, as Sigurd kind of becomes what's called the Jarl of the Viking clan that they're leading out, which is basically essentially saying he's king of the clan. And Eivor is basically his right-hand man. So yeah, they set out for Anglo-Saxon England. I believe the time period that this was set at was around 875 AD, somewhere around there, I want to say. I don't quite remember, but somewhere around the 870s AD. So yeah, they arrive in Anglo-Saxon England. Their main objective is they just want to build up their clan. They want to obviously take a bunch of the resources, so they're going to pillage and burn monasteries, as Vikings did back then, for the resources to sell and trade and be able to build up the clan. Their clan is called the Raven Clan. And yeah, their main focus is to build up the Raven Clan, to build alliances throughout England, where there are already Vikings who have come and made settlements and are currently like battling throughout England. And as was the case back then, they want to take over the island of England. They have in this game, they have all the different areas. They had Mercia, you had East Anglia, London, you had Kent. What else did you have? I'm trying to think of other ones off the top of my head. West Saxon. You had all the areas. Like, they do a good job. I think Assassin's Creed team does a good job with staying as historically accurate as they can within this kind of like historical fiction world. And yeah, some other areas that you can go and play in as well throughout the story as you progress are Vinland. You have a mission there to go to, and then you can go back to Vinland anytime you want and play through some areas there. And then yeah, you can go back to Norway eventually. Eventually, as you progress through the story, you can go back to Norway. Really, you can go back to Norway anytime, but you don't really, because of the progression, want to go back until later. And yeah, another thing that I really liked in this, before I get more into the story details, is they also had a Asgard and Jotunheim arc. So if you know some Norse mythology, you have your Thor, your Loki, your Odin. So that's where that kind of comes into play, where you get to travel to Asgard and Jotunheim and play through some story arcs there, which is pretty cool. And yeah, so like I said, basically the story is, while you're trying to build up your clan and take over these lands and build up alliances throughout the land, there's also something going on in the background called the Order of Ancients, and this is where the Hidden Ones come in. So the Hidden Ones are basically the Brotherhood before the Assassin's Creed Brotherhood was officially called the Brotherhood, so they're called the Hidden Ones right now at this point in the timeline. And they're trying to take down the Order of Ancients, which is, it's not the Templars, but it's basically, the Brotherhood versus Templars, think of it like that. It's basically the Brotherhood versus the Templars, the Hidden Ones versus the Ancient Order. So the Ancient Order, it's not the main stories of the game, but you go through, it really is kind of, even though it's kind of in the background, you can take out each member like throughout the game as you play along. Some parts of the story, you do have a focus on taking out members of the Order. But I thought that was a lot of fun. Kind of, you can go about it freely, kind of. And yeah, eventually getting to the end of the game is when you get to the final order of Ancient Member, who's known as the Father. I'm not going to give any spoilers away, like I said, but I will say, and I'll kind of touch on this in the negatives, the ending for this game, the story, was a little bit anticlimactic in my opinion. As far as the past, like when you're in the Animus goes, as all the Viking saga. When we take it back to the present day, there's some story that goes on there, obviously trying to figure out how to save the world again and save her from another impending doom. This has become a trilogy for Layla Hassan, and I'm not going to say whether it wraps up or not. That would be a spoiler alert there. You have to play to find out for yourself, but they find what they need through the adventures of Eivor, through the Animus, and they use the staff from the story of Atlantis in the previous game on Odyssey comes into play here. And yeah, it was kind of crazy, and kind of a real crazy twist, I'd say, the present day story had. So you have to find out for yourself, but I enjoyed that end of it. I thought it was not as anticlimactic as the story through the Animus with Eivor was. But yeah, overall, like I said, I know I didn't give too many details on the story. It might be like all over the place, but I don't really want to give away too much of the story. I don't like doing that. If you want to play and learn the story, play it yourself. Yeah, but overall for the story, I'd give it an 18.5 out of 20. Now, next up, we got the visuals and the sound. So, so I don't have one of those fancy TVs yet. I have a Sony TV, but it's not one of those 4K, 8K, Ultra HD TVs. So I didn't get the full blast of the PS5 next gen, but I got quite a bit of it still, enough of it. Visuals absolutely beautiful. I think this was the perfect game for me to go ahead and start my PlayStation 5 playing days with. So many moments throughout the game where I'm just stopping as I'm traveling, whether I'm on boat or on horse, and just admiring the scenery, admiring the land, the water, everything. Like, the atmosphere was amazing this game. They did a tremendous job with it. For me, I like to play with headphones, so I have, especially 3D audio, so it makes it so much more immersive and really puts me into the game. And then, like I said, with the DualSense controller, that's another level of immersion that adds to it, where you're really feeling the tension in combat or drawing back an arrow. Overall, it's amazing. The visuals are amazing and beautiful. Like I said, I would stop and I took so many screenshots when I was getting to viewpoints and doing my leap of faiths. And yeah, the music, the sound, the music is great. As always, I feel like is with the Assassin's Creed game, especially recently, the music is amazing. You get, when you're traveling by boat through the rivers, you get your Viking clan singing songs. And something else that was in this, it's not really music, but it's flighting. Think about flighting kind of like Viking rap battles. Think of it like that. But yeah, just overall, beautiful, stunning visuals, great music and sound, and just a wonderful immersive atmosphere. So I got to give Assassin's Creed Valhalla overall a 20 out of 20 for visuals and sound. Now for the negatives. There aren't too many negatives to point out. However, though, I guess it's just kind of just a recurring theme with Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed games is the bugs and glitches. Obviously, I started playing right away, so like I was playing as the patches were coming in, fixing it. So I try not to let that get in the way too much and take the rating down, but it is something that does impact it overall still. I never have really dealt with too many bugs. I'd say this is actually the first game where I have dealt with a few bugs that I really have noticed. I was like, hey, got to fix that. But I know a lot of people really ragged on Assassin's Creed Unity because it had so many bugs, and I feel like that's the most underrated Assassin's Creed game just because of that. I didn't experience any bugs with that game, thankfully, and I loved it. I love the French Revolution. I love that game. I think it's underrated. Syndicate was another one. I think people said there was a lot of bugs. I didn't really experience many with it either and loved that game. So Valhalla ended up being the first game I did, experience a few bugs. Nothing game breaking, nothing too annoying, but there were some that were slightly annoying. There was one, whenever you would die or start the game up, you'd automatically, for some reason, be drunk, so the screen would be blurry and everything would be weird, of course, like if you were drinking some ale out of one of those bins and whatnot. So that was kind of annoying because it took a little bit for it to go away. There were some just, things where I get stuck or somewhere, like with the horse or the boat, and it's like, what's causing me to get stuck? I don't know what was going on, but there seemed to be a glitch to me. And so there were some combat scenes, some of the combat scenes they have that can be brutal. Like some of the finishing moves where you would finish a person, but you already killed the person, so you're kind of just finishing air. So it looks like you're not even attacking anyone. So that was kind of annoying and kind of ruined some of that gameplay there. But overall, it wasn't anything too bad as far as the bugs go. The other negative, like I've already touched on in the story, kind of an anticlimactic ending for me. I kind of was hoping for a better ending for such an epic game, so it kind of let me down there. But overall, not too many negatives to go on about. So I think that about wraps it up for negatives. So overall, I give the negatives an 18 out of 20. Which brings us to our fifth and final section of the review, which are the X factors. So I think I've already touched on some of these and what I've discussed. The major X factor for me has got to be the graphics and just the immersive atmosphere. As I've said, might be different for those who, for those who play on previous gen, so on like the Xbox One or PS4, you might not get that full immersion, might not get the full, wow of the graphics. So I would recommend, you know, I know PS5s are hard to get and things the way they are right now, but if you're willing to wait, I recommend waiting to play a game like Assassin's Creed. Wait to play it on next gen, because I feel like it really thrives on the next gen consoles. So yeah, more X factors. Yeah, the music's great. Like I said, I love the music. My opening song for the intro after my foreword, that was one of the fun songs to listen to in the game. I enjoyed it. Combat scenes, those are X factors as well. I love the combat scenes. They can be brutal. I won't go too into detail here, but they can be some brutal finishing scenes as well with the axe. If you use axe, I prefer to use axes. And yeah, combat was great. Atmosphere, as I said. And another X factor for me is the Asgard and Jotunheim arcs. Exploring and playing through Asgard and Jotunheim, that was absolutely beautiful. It adds to the stunning graphics. Yeah, it was amazing. I wasn't expecting to touch into Norse mythology like that. I figured it'd be a part of it, obviously, you know, with the Vikings and all that, but I didn't think I'd actually get to go through and play through some exploration and some missions within Asgard and Jotunheim. So that was a cool little surprise and a fun little thing they added in there. So that was enjoyable. So yeah, those are the X factors. So for the X factors overall, I'd give it a 19 out of 20. So yeah, that wraps up my review for Assassin's Creed Valhalla for the PlayStation 5. So you've seen me go through all 5 sections and seen the scores I give it. So now when we tally it up overall, I'd have to give Assassin's Creed Valhalla a 94.5 out of 100, which will rank it as an amazing game, which it is. It's an amazing game. That 0.5 for me, 95 and above, I'd say is something I'd consider masterpiece. Just that 0.5, I know, I don't like to do it, but it's just because of the bugs. Some of those bugs that maybe if they weren't in there, maybe if I would have waited to play maybe a month more, maybe that wouldn't have been there and could have changed my opinion a little bit. But I just feel like, you know, you work on a game. I get they're putting out Assassin's Creed games like every year now, like Call of Duty, which maybe they should slow down a little bit on. But although this one came out 2 years after Odyssey, so maybe if they can keep it 2 years, because I feel like they did good with this. They didn't have too many game-breaking bugs, so maybe stick on that schedule. But I feel like developers, they have the tools and resources. I feel like they should be better with making their games ready for day one. I know they have hard jobs, and I know it's a lot goes into it with software and all that. I couldn't even imagine doing it, but I still think that Ubisoft could be better with this, because they are kind of notorious for their early game bugs. So it does keep it from being a masterpiece, I guess, but you could easily classify it either way. So yeah, 94.5 out of 100, an amazing game for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and I can't wait for the next one and continue this story and see where Assassin's Creed goes next. So yeah, I obviously would highly recommend playing this game. Even if you're not a big Assassin's Creed person, you know, check it out, catch up on the story on YouTube videos, check out some of the games as well, and yeah, it's a great franchise, great series, I feel like, even for the way they've kind of revamped ever since Origins. I know a lot of the classic old school Assassin's Creed fans don't really like where they've gone, but I love it. It's better than staying stale and going with the same thing year after year after year. I'm glad they kind of breathe a breath of fresh air into the series. I think it's done good for the franchise and is doing good for it moving forward as they continue to refine it. So, but yeah, that's my review for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So go check out the game for yourself. I highly recommend it. And yeah, please like and share the video, hit the subscribe button, and Player One signing off.
Kunna hugda